Okay, I think we will just move on to the strength part for today. Like I said to you guys previously, we will focus on some um, programming aspects today. So I could just have like a long lecture telling you guys how you should program your repetitions and sets in order to maximize your potential and your progression. But rather than doing that, I want to sort of just have you guys train with me. We use a few exercises that we've been doing before. If you're new to this class, I will show you how to do the exercises. I will just tell you guys how many reps and how many sets we're doing. We're doing it all together. Then at the end, I will explain to you guys what we were actually doing and how this can be implemented in your own program in order to maximize your progression. Now, this technique that I will be showing you is specifically important at a certain level when doing bodyweight exercises because progressing gets very difficult and at some point it's very difficult to just add a set or a repetition. So without further ado, let's just start with our first exercise. First exercise is going to be focusing on the handstand push-up. So starting with the basic is a push-up. Now, if you feel it is easy to do push-ups, you can do 10, 20 repetitions. Then we need to make it more difficult. So the pike push-up, so as high as you can, down to the triangle of support and up again. It's important to go down to this headstand triangle, so head in front of your hands, and also your elbows should always be tucked in. Do not flare them out like this. You do not want to do this, but try and tuck your elbows inwards. That eventually will teach you to get more, involve more muscles, so it will make it easier, as well as it protects your shoulders. Now, if you find all of this easy, you can pull down your chair. We can get our feet higher like this. So you can bend your knees, that's no problem. We go down to the triangle of support, up again, always tucking our elbows in. Now, the higher your feet are, the more difficult this will become. And obviously, you can use something lower as well and sort of build your way up as time goes by. Now, if you find it fairly easy to do with a chair, you can try and use the wall. Starting with sort of a baby handstand position like this, go down and up. Same triangle of support, up, always twisting our elbows inwards. After that, you can try with your feet straighten out all the way. All right. You can also do it the other way, back to wall, but then try and have a 90-degree angle in your knees so that you don't get a back bend like this. And then same triangle of support and up. This might be a little bit easier than the face facing the wall, actually. So before we start, let's just get familiar with these progressions and find out which one is for you. I suggest you find an exercise that you can do around 5 repetitions of. And if you have any questions, now is a good time to ask questions. So I will be answering questions as we sort of experiment with these different progressions. If you know what progression you are using, just feel free to do a set. Obviously, if you are comfortable doing freestanding handstand push-ups, you do that. I will be doing my own progression as well. For me, in order for it to be difficult and for 5 repetitions to be challenging, I will be doing this sort of wide half lay 90-degree push-up. So in calisthenics, it's always important to adjust, make stuff difficult. That's what we do. And we keep developing our goals. Our goals are getting harder, more difficult. It's the way it goes. Okay, so we're going to do all our exercises back to back today, meaning I will introduce the next exercise. And then when we introduced all the exercises, we've tried it, we will start doing our actual strength work, where we will be doing these special sets that I will introduce back to back on each exercise. So if you guys don't have any questions, I will just keep going towards our next exercise. I do not believe we have been doing this exercise in class before, but it's instead of moving towards the handstand push-up from our push-up position, we will be trying to develop it into a planche push-up, okay? So I think I'm gonna need a lower camera angle for this one. Should be good. All right, so from a push-up position, instead of doing a regular push-up, we will be leaning forwards. So we will be walking forwards so that we have an angle in our arms. And from here, we will be doing our push-up. It's called a pseudo planche push-up, and it makes the push-up considerably harder. Obviously, the further forward you lean, the more difficult it becomes. So I suggest you guys to find something, can be anything. So my goal is to touch my head on this one. I can just use a marker where I have my hands and sort of measure, okay, so this was easy. Let's try a little bit further. All right, so that was more like it, okay? So now you make it more difficult by sliding this. For me, it's a chair, it could be anything, just to measure where your head is to make it more difficult. And in order to keep track of this, you could just use something like this, like my resistance band, and I could use a marker to sort of just keep track of where I am at, so that next time I'm doing this, I'm doing it at the same level. A more difficult version of this progression is that when at some point you will be leaning forward a lot, and when you're going down, you can actually lift up your legs into a bent arm planche. So if you're comfortable doing that, you do that. Also, if you can hold a tuck planche like this, remember that now I'm just showing you guys a bunch of different progressions for different levels. So you stop wherever you're comfortable. Don't feel like you have to try the hardest progression. But if you can hold a tuck planche, you can also do tuck planche push-ups. Or you can do tuck planche to bent arm planche and up again. And so it goes. Eventually, at some point, hopefully, you will be doing planche push-ups. I also do a lot of I use resistance bands for my planche push-up training as well, but I can introduce those exercises in another class, okay? Now let's just experiment with these different progressions, and let me know in live chat if you have any questions or if you can't find a suiting progression for you. As with the last exercise, we are aiming for about 5 repetitions. So it should be very difficult for you to perform the 5th repetition. If it's 4 or 6, 7, 8, it's totally fine too. Let's try not to keep it below 4, okay? Now for me, when I'm doing this, training for planche push-up, I sometimes also use this progression from half-lay planche push-up. But I don't think I will be able to do 5 repetitions of this. We'll see. Maybe I'll try and then change to easier progression. I also do that a lot of times. Because sometimes it's difficult to find. Sometimes one progression is a bit too easy, then the other one is a bit too hard. Then I start with the hard one and just transfer over to the easier one in order to get more reps in. Okay, so if you guys don't have any questions, let's move on to our last exercise. In fact, I'll just use the same angle, I think. So this last exercise is tricep extensions. We've been doing it in a class before, first or second class, I think. So the tricep extension is all about going down like this and up again. So instead of doing a push-up like this, we're going down to our elbows and up again. Now, in order to make this easier, we can do it on our knees. It's totally fine. We need to have our hands a little bit in front of our shoulders, and then think that your elbows are going down approximately to where your shoulder, beneath your shoulder. Okay? So you can do it on your knees as well to make it easier, or you can elevate your hands with a chair or something like that. So basically you're just doing this. And the higher you go with your hands, the easier it gets. You can also, you can also use the wall for this. So sort of like this. But if you can do it on the floor, do it on the floor. To make it a bit more difficult, you can go like this, outwards instead. You can try this on your knees as well. It's fairly difficult. And obviously you can also try and move towards the one arm, like we do when training for the one arm push-up. You sort of just start by supporting with the other hand, and then you start supporting less by using less fingers. At some point you're just using one finger, and then I can't really do it. You can also, like we move towards the handstand push-up from our push-up, you can do the same with this exercise. Make it more difficult by elevating your feet. So I'm just going to show you guys one of them, and you can use the wall like we do for the handstand push-up as well. Like this to make it more difficult. I myself are training for the handstand tricep extension, so I do a lot of work against the wall as well as freestanding, but I can't do many reps of the freestanding version. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes to sort of wrap your heads around these progressions, and then we are going to start for real, going back to back through all of these exercises using this programming technique that I will show you guys. Now, please let me know if you have any questions. Turn on some music for you guys. Now, if you don't have any questions at all, I'm guessing I'm a super clear speaker. Yeah, that's good, I guess. But then let's just start. If you don't have any questions, I'm guessing you know what to do and know what progressions you are using. For those of you who already knew, I hope you just did a set to get an even better of a workout. Now let's just start with the first one, which is the training for the handstand push-ups. So we're doing the progression that we found that we can do, about 5 repetitions off, and then we do as many repetitions as we can do. If you feel that you can do maybe one more rep, then don't do it, okay? After doing this repetition, or after doing this about 5 repetitions, we will be pausing for about 10 breaths. So you will do 1, 2, etc., up to 10 breaths, and then you will be doing as many repetitions as you can yet again. Most likely this will not be as many, so let's say the first set you can do 5 repetitions, and then the second one perhaps you can do 2 or 3. All right, so let's just try it out and do it for the first one. Okay, so do your 5 repetitions. 4, 6 is also okay, of your handstand push-up progression. Then you pause for 10 seconds or 10 breaths, and then you do as many repetitions as you can yet again. I will be doing mine as well, so let's just get at it. Okay, when you are finished, I suggest you just sit down and stretch for a bit like we do when we're waiting. We can use this stretch today just to make sure that everyone is able to finish their set. And also the next exercise is similar muscles, so we need a short break between them. It's always nice to just not sit and wait when we're pausing. I like to make use of my time, so I try to do some stretching in between my sets usually. All right, now let's move on to the next exercise, which is the progression for the planche push-up. So use the progression that you found earlier. They can do about 5 repetitions off. And now we're doing the same as previously. We're doing our repetitions. We're pausing for about 10 seconds. And then we're doing as many repetitions as we can. In both cases, if we feel we can maybe squeeze out one more rep, but we're not sure, let's not do it, because then we're just blasting our muscles and the rest of the workout is just going to be not as efficient, okay? So the pseudo planche push-ups or tuck planche push-ups or whatever you're using, let's just start. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be doing my own progressions in this one. Remember, about 10 breaths of break in between. And when you're finished, just do a nice stretch. Now, I will tell you guys when we're finished how we can efficiently use this to get stronger and to keep track of our progression. But let's just focus on the workout for now, and we'll talk about it in the end. Okay, let's move on to the last of our 3 exercises, the tricep extension progression that we are using. Same thing, do your repetitions, you pause for 10 seconds or 10 breaths rather, and then we do as many repetitions as we can yet again. All right, just gonna adjust my camera angle a little bit. Okay, so let's just start. I'm struggling keeping balance in this one. About 10 breaths of break. Sorry about that. Okay, that was hard. Now, when you're finished, feel free to just chill it in, stretch. Let's do a different stretch on our next round. You decide yourself if you want to push it in the stretching, if you just want to chill it. All right, let's start again and do another round. That was one set of each exercise. Even though it feels like two of each, this is one cluster set that we're doing of each exercise. Each set, we are now doing 2 clusters. So one set, 2 clusters. We can do more, doing 2 today, okay? So let's do the round one more time, all the exercises back to back. And let's do it together, okay? Starting with a handstand push-up progression. Let's do, like we did previously, do our sets, 10 breaths or repetitions, and then we do as many repetitions as we can. Okay, let's start. Now this way of building up my sets and repetitions is the same that I'm using for almost all of my workouts. And it's been great. I've had great success with it. And like I said to you previously, I will tell you guys how to build up your sets and repetitions from week to week. Now when we're finished, we can sit down in this split leg and try and push ourselves forward. If we feel like we're just falling back, try and sit with your cuffs on your hands and push yourself downwards. All right, let's move on to our next exercise, which is the progression for planche push-up. So we do the progression we feel most comfortable with, and we can do about 5 reps. And same thing, do our set reps, break for about 10 breaths, do as many as we can. So let's just go. When we're finished, we sit down in our stretch. Okay, now let's do our last exercise of this round. I think maybe even we have time for a third round, okay? Which is the handstand, no, sorry, which is the tricep extension progression that we are using. It's on your knees, full push-up position against the wall. Doesn't matter as long as you find it difficult to do about 5 reps, okay? Same thing, 5 reps or whatever we can. Then we pause for 10 breaths, do our last repetitions. All right, let's just start. Oh God. When training bodyweight exercises, sometimes balance is involved too, so it can be difficult when you're pushing yourself. Okay, when we're finished, we sit down in our stretch. And we'll soon do our last round, maybe a bit quicker. I'm guessing you've gotten the hang of it now. Guess everyone is finished and even gotten some stretching. All right. Let's just do one more round, okay? We might be a bit over time, but that's fine, okay? Let's do a last round, but let's do it quick this time, okay? So starting with the handstand push-up progression. So 2 clusters on each set. Feel free to squeeze out those last reps now, since it's our last round. We can do short cross leg stretch. I'm not gonna stretch for long now, just want to make sure that everyone is following and have time to complete their sets. Feel free to do the lotus if you can, if you're flexible. Just sit like this if you are inflexible like me, but want to do something about it. All right, let's go to the next exercise, the planche push-up progression. Let's just start. Stretching in between. If you finish early, it's important to get a little bit of pause in between, since we're working the same muscles in each of these exercises. Some to more extent than others. Now, when you're doing this yourself, you might even want to do 4 sets, each with 2 clusters. You can always add clusters, add sets, or add reps, but we'll talk about that after our last exercise, which starts about now. Let's do the tricep extension progression. If you struggle with doing the same amount of reps this time, it's totally fine. I am too. A little bit short pausing this last round, but it's good too. All right. Sit down for the last few seconds of stretching, just to make sure that all of you guys get to finish your sets. Okay, so I guess that's it for today. Today, we did what's called cluster sets. The clusters referring to the two intra-set sets, sort of, because we're not counting both of these rounds, like our first 5 repetitions, and then the last few repetitions is one set, but 2 clusters, okay? Now, what's extremely powerful about this sort of way of structuring your sets and repetitions is that when you're just doing one cluster, like you usually do when you're training strength, the next week you might not be able to do one more repetition. However, if you do 2 clusters like we did today, you may be able to add a repetition on your second cluster. So if you, for your handstand push-up progression, was able to do, say, 5 repetitions, and then after 10 breaths of pausing, you could do 3 repetitions. Next week, try to do 4 repetitions on the second round, because it's more likely that you will be able to do that than to add 1 more repetitions in your primary cluster. So that way you can build up your second cluster so that it is equal to your first cluster. So for example, again, using the handstand push-up as an example, you use your progression, you do 5 repetitions on your first, you do 10 breaths of pausing, and then each week you build up 1 repetition until you can do 5 on both, and then maybe you can add 1 or even 2 repetitions in your primary cluster. This is especially powerful when you start stagnating, okay? Sometimes it might even be difficult adding a repetition in your second cluster, and then you might even need to add a third cluster. So you do your 5 repetitions, you pause for 10 breaths, you do as many as you can, minus 1, you pause for 10 more breaths, and then you do a third cluster. It's very complicated. I usually get by with using 2 clusters, and I use this method for practically all of my workouts, and for me it has been revolutionary. So I hope that you guys sort of understood the concept and that I was clear in explaining it. I wanted to just sort of guide you through a workout using the principle, and now I'm sort of trying to explain how to implement it into your workout. So please feel free to ask any questions. We're starting to close we're ending this workout or class very soon. But I will stay for a few minutes, and as always, I will suggest you guys to do something at home until next time. Obviously, if you have your own schedule and your workouts, you do whatever and try to implement some of the things that I try to teach you. If you need some help on deciding what to do for the next week until next class, I suggest that you try to apply this principle to, let's say, 2 other classes. So today we did push. Let's try to add the same sort of workout, this cluster setting, to our pull routine. I don't remember what class that is. I will send you guys on paper these suggested workouts. I will write which class it is then. But we had a pull workout focusing on pull-ups and rows and stuff like that. So try to implement this on that workout as well. If you want a third workout, try to use our full upper body workout, also implementing these principles that I showed you guys today. Remember, train handstands whenever you can. Feel free to use my handstand guide on my webpage, or feel free to look back at any of the other classes. About half of them has some kind of handstand topic. All of the topics have different progressions for all levels, I think. And if you have any questions, I'm gonna stay here for 3 more minutes to answer them, okay? And for my subscribers, you guys know what to do. Film yourself, ask questions in the Facebook group. If you're not a subscriber, feel free to send me a message if you have any questions regarding it. And yeah, that's it for today. Like I said, I'll stay here for a few more minutes to answer your questions.